This is the Build Your Path podcast, where we explore how people get into their careers in the built environment. Today's guest is Lyndsay Mitchell. Lyndsay is the Strategic Planning Manager at the City of Arlington in Texas and has over 15 years of experience in the industry. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Shapiro and Duncan. Build the lifestyle you deserve. Welcome on into the Build Your Path podcast, hosted by myself, Matthew Pine. I am with my guest today,
Lyndsay Mitchell, Strategic Planning Manager with the City of Arlington, Texas. And the coolest thing that I've worked on in my career so far, there's been a lot of cool things, but probably the coolest is our autonomous vehicle demonstration project that we did in 2017. We were the first city in the United States to offer AV rides to the public. So that was a really fun thing to be able to be involved with.
So, Lyndsay, welcome to the show. Appreciate you doing this.
Thank you.
Yep. So if you want to walk through with our listeners, maybe how you got to where you are now, maybe what pathway you followed to get where you wanted to be.
Sure. As a kid, I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all. Things like anthropologist or studying linguistics in college or something like that. And when I got to college, I went through several different majors. One of them was architecture because I knew I was interested in the built environment. And I thought that was the kind of the closest thing that I knew to study in order to get into that. So I was in architecture for a couple years. We got to the junior level studio and things got really complicated with computers. We weren't really using drafting tables anymore. And I became not really interested in that. And I thought, no, this isn't quite what I want to do. So I took the next 2 years to try to figure out, well, what is it I want to do? And finally stumbled upon urban planning. And I had no idea before my senior year of college that was even a field of study or anything like that. So I was just about to graduate and finally decided, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I just sort of invested all my energy in figuring out how to become an urban planner.
So what is involved in becoming an urban planner in terms of like schooling?
Typically, you have to get a master's degree in urban planning. That's generally what most planners have. There are a few planning programs across the country that have bachelor's degrees, but it is less common. Most planners major in a variety of different things, really almost anything for their undergraduate, and then go to a graduate program that is specifically focused on urban planning. And then after that, there is a certification process that many planners go through with the American Institute of Certified Planners as well.
Okay. Would you say there's been a mentor at all in your life, maybe through your early career or through your schooling?
Yes, for sure. I was really fortunate right out of undergrad to get a job with a council of governments, which is they're all over the country, but they're regional level government agencies that are kind of like a coalition of cities that work together on different things. And I got my first job at one of those up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Mm-hmm. And my boss there turned out to be a great mentor. In fact, I still work for her. She moved over to the city about 12 years ago and then brought me on board. And she has been an excellent mentor throughout my entire career.
So, urban planning seems like, to me at least, from the outside view, a little bit more of a challenging career. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges or some of the challenging aspects of your job?
Sure, it is incredibly challenging. And it's getting more and more challenging. I think that, 40, 50 years ago, planners knew what they were supposed to do. They had a pretty defined set of things they were trying to do, like land use planning and zoning and long range planning for areas that weren't built up yet and that kind of thing. In most urban areas, since we're all built up and there isn't a lot of land left for development, it becomes very tricky to know what to do next. And so planners have been struggling, I think, for at least a decade on what our identity is and what we really should be working on and focusing on. And so we've branched out into a number of different areas, transportation, economic development, neighborhood planning, historic preservation, kind of anything that goes on in a city, a planner could kind of touch that. And so it becomes really challenging because there's such a range of different things that we could be involved with and do get involved with. But that also can make it fun as well.
Yeah, I would imagine there is some fun in solving problems. So what is it? I know we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but what is the coolest or the most unique thing that you've ever done?
So as I mentioned, in 2017, we were the first city in the United States to launch an autonomous vehicle program that was open to the public. And so we used these shuttles that are not like the standard auto grade autonomous vehicles that you see on the streets that are basically just look like a car but can be driven independently. These were shuttles that did not have a steering wheel, did not have brakes. It's basically like just getting in a little rubber tired trolley, and that trolley is autonomous. We use those out in our entertainment district, which if you know anything about Arlington, we're home to the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Cowboys. So we used the vehicles out there, and it was really a lot of fun to be able to launch that project and work on that, have it be the first in the US that was open to the public.
And were people, receptive to the idea at first? Were they tentative or?
Yeah, they were really pretty receptive. There was a lot of excitement, and we did, a little bit of selection bias. People who were interested in it came out to ride it. So most people were just really excited to try it out. Some were a little scared, but once they got on it and kind of tried it out and realized it only went about 8 miles an hour, it's not too frightening. So I think it made them feel more comfortable.
Good. So what has it been like to work in a career specifically in the built environment industry?
It has been very rewarding to work in the built environment industry. I mean, like I said, it's something that I knew I was interested in from pretty early on. I didn't really know how to get there. But the fact that my profession influences how our cities are shaped and what's out there and how people interact with their environments, that's very interesting and very rewarding to basically all planners that I know. So it's just been a great way to spend my time in my career.
So I know a lot of firms, especially in the built environment, have either apprenticeships or they offer internships. Have you ever had the chance to work with young people?
Yes. In fact, all the time. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm really big on getting out and educating younger people about planning and talking to anybody who would like to talk to me. We have a program at the City of Arlington that is an urban design center. And so we work with our local university, which is the University of Texas at Arlington. And we have graduate students who work as interns there. And so I managed that center for about 6 years and worked with over 35 students who came through there and really helped them kind of get off the ground. And many of them are in really successful positions now, like directors of planning, and they work at large consultant firms and things like that. I also do a lot of education programs with our local school district. So going out to the K through 12 set of classes and just presenting on what planning is and letting people know that it is a career, it is something you can pursue, and kind of a little bit about it. So they have it in their heads as something that they could potentially do.
That's really cool. So I know you alluded to it and said, it's how challenging it can be, but it also can be rewarding. What do you most like about working in your current position?
Well, there are a lot of things I like about it. I've been here at the city almost 13 years. And so one of the things that I think has kept me here so long is that it never gets boring. There's always something new and different that we're working on. It's very challenging to run a city, and there's lots of different things that happen every day. And so being able to see how the projects I work on how they materialize and become real, and how people interact with them and use them is extremely rewarding. I don't know that there are too many other careers where you get to actually see physically the fruits of your labor, as it were. So that's really rewarding. And also just working with the public generally, it can be great to kind of just help out the community.
Sure. So I know we talked a little bit about, working with young people. So say a young person came up to you, says, I'm really interested in urban planning and city design. Why should I go into this career? What would you tell them?
Kind of along the same lines, that it is very rewarding. It is not boring at all. There's new things to learn all the time. You can learn and grow throughout your entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in the public sector, it's a little bit different in the private sector for planners, but there are options for both. But I would just say that it's just really rewarding to be able to work on projects that impact people's lives.
Okay. And I know you had mentioned the program with the driverless transportation. What are some more maybe emerging technologies that you see coming to the forefront for urban planning?
That's a great question. There's a lot going on in the smart city infrastructure world right now, and that can be anything from sensors in the streets that
Mm-hmm.
interact with vehicles or traffic lights to help with timing and traffic flow. That's a lot of the stuff that we are learning about now. And efficient energy technologies are big.
Mm-hmm.
More and more, we are looking at building our buildings with the most efficient systems that we can,
Mm-hmm.
which goes back to protecting the taxpayers' investment in it. In the public sector, that's what you're using is tax money. So you want to get as efficient as possible. So there's a lot of interesting developing technology that is coming around right now, and it'll be interesting to see what actually sticks around and becomes something that a lot of cities use.
And as a follow-up to that, we can cut this if need be, if it's not relevant. But I've seen before, like they do like scans of like almost like the topography of like the area. Is there something similar in urban planning that you do?
Sure. I don't know that I know a technical term for it, but I mean, we're always looking at the built environment, and we use a lot of things like aerial imagery and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But there are areas of planning that would go further into topography. The environmental planning is one of them, and lots of stormwater and infrastructure, flood infrastructure, which of course is big with all the climate change that we're experiencing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, Lyndsay, certainly appreciate you taking out some time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.